right, we're about to get started here. We'll give it a few more seconds to get situated. We're going to do some fun stuff tonight, that's for sure. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the stream. Now, I hear a lot that people have passed the SAC Plus, but they don't really know what it's like in a SOC or really what the work entails, and so it's pretty hard for them to get job ready. Tonight, we're going to take care of that. We're going to walk through some Try Hack Me labs that go through the different things that we do in the SOC on a day-to-day basis so that you know what you're getting into and you know where to go to start working on those skills. And I'm going to dive into where things may verge from the lab SOC versus what's in reality. I've worked in, I think, 3 or 4 different SOCs now. All of them are different, but we'll get you straight. We'll get those fundamental skills, get you job ready. So just a word of warning, this is a beginner-friendly walkthrough. So if you're looking for malware engineering, I know we did that last week. We're going to take a step back, cover some of the basics, and help folks get ready to land that first job, get ready for those interviews that they start landing in the SOC. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. If you are in a SOC role, or you're looking for a SOC role, drop in chat what your biggest struggle is getting job ready, and we'll see if we can help you out. If you're on LinkedIn, I will try to check, but I don't get any of those comments in from there without actually actively looking at it. I'll have to find a solution for that. But for those on YouTube and Twitch, I will see your comments coming through, so make sure to send them. All right, let's dive in. Let me share my screen. I have hiccups, so ignore those. Maybe it will let me share my screen. There we go. All right, let's prioritize this one. There we go. Beautiful. All right, I'm center of the screen. So what I have here, we got 2 hours to do work. We should be able to get through 2 beginner labs. Should be able to, depending on the questions that we get, but we'll definitely take pauses to answer questions to make sure people are following along. As always, I encourage you to follow along. If you're not, you're doing yourself a huge disservice. You're never going to get job ready unless you're getting your hands on keyboard and you're working through this stuff. So I encourage you, please do it. It is better that you do that than sit and just watch these videos. I appreciate you watching, but I would feel even better if you're following along and commenting along the way. If you get stuck, I'm here for you. Feel free to comment. We'll help you get past that. If you're watching this video later, hop in the Discord community in the link to the description, and we'll get you straight as well. All right, so let's check these out. So we have one. I see a couple people joining us. Hello, drop in the chat what the biggest roadblock is for you getting job ready if you're looking for a SOC role. So we have 2 things here. We're going to start with just the SOC 1 alert triage room. Sorry if you hear my dog. And then we're going to move to SOC level 1 alert reporting. So for those of you who don't know, and we'll cover it in here, the difference between a level 1 and a level 2 in a SOC, and sometimes level 3. Not all SOCs are situated in this way, but it is a very common scheme for the different levels in a SOC. And really, the higher the number, the more advanced the personnel are at that level. That's really what it means. So let's go ahead and get started. I think I'm already in here. So this just says, learn about SOC alerts and build a systematic approach to efficiently triaging them. I can't even read tonight. Jeez. All right, so I'm gonna kind of skim through some of this stuff and pause at the things I think are important. And that's kind of how we're gonna rock through this. But again, I encourage you, and I'll drop the link to this one in chat for everyone, in case you do want to follow along. Let's make it easy for folks. All right, let's see. Here we go. So here is what we can consider like a dashboard for alerts, right? This is your kind of where you're working when you're inside of a SOC. You're looking for things, you're looking for higher severity items. So here we see low, we see medium, we see critical, and we see high. So you work them. Critical is the highest level severity, low is the bottom, if you didn't know. And that's how you want to work them, because you don't want to work a low when you have a critical on the board, because lows are kind of like, it's not super impactful, and it's probably not even a real thing. Criticals are, this is something we really need to look at. It could have a really big impact on our customer. So that's why we want to look at it. And believe it or not, some SOCs actually don't even have severity scores on things either. They're all worked at the same level. Not very efficient time-wise, but that's just how it is. It's not a very mature SOC. All right, so let's go ahead and mark this off. We got the dashboard, and let's go ahead and look at the next thing. So in a SOC, we have kind of an idea of where things are categorized, and we see it here. We see new, meaning no one's picked them up yet. We see in progress, meaning someone's actively working. And the reason we have to differentiate is because, say you have 20 analysts in your SOC, you don't want multiple people working the same one, especially if there's a lot of different alerts on the screen. So we want to be very efficient with our personnel. That's why you'll see that they're in progress, and you want to make sure you're working something that's not currently in progress. Now, don't get these mixed up with actual incidents, right? Incidents will be typically removed outside of this alert dashboard and elevated to that level 2 or that tier 2 and above, and they're going to work outside of this. So don't get those mixed up. This would be something that you would see a typical level 1 or tier 1 analyst working. They're just there to say, hey, is this a true positive? Is this a false positive? Does this need to be tuned? Things like that, right? You're just basically saying yes or no, and then you're passing it off if it does need further investigation or you don't know what to do with it. That's when you would get the other tier involved. Hey everyone, thanks for joining. If you are looking to get into a SOC role, drop in chat. What's one thing that's kind of getting in your way, or that's a roadblock to getting that first analyst position or that next analyst position if you are already an analyst? All right, so the other things down here, so true positive and false positive. These can get confusing. So true positive means this thing detected on bad, and it is indeed bad or what the detection was looking for. So that's a very, very specific difference, right? So just because it triggered on something that wasn't bad, but the logic was still in line with it, yeah, it's still a true positive. It did what it was supposed to do. It's just benign, right? It's a true positive, but benign. And typically there's another annotation for those types of alerts. And then false positive is, it just means it missed the mark. It didn't find what the logic was supposed to find. And typically these go into a queue for your detection engineer. So there's another job title if you're thinking about SOC roles. And they go check those out and see if something needs tuning or how they can go about tuning that so they fire less. So we get less false positives. Then archive means we've already done it. It's closed out. All right, let's see. So we do have a couple of different things that go into that create alerts anyways, right? So we have the SIM, and the SIM is basically your big log collector. If you haven't played with the SIM, I definitely encourage you to play with it. In EDR or NDR, I've actually never heard of an NDR here, probably a network detection response or something. I've never heard of that acronym. But in EDR, endpoint detection response, this is basically antivirus on steroids. It's doing a lot more for you, giving you a lot more visibility in the environment. Very good tool. And then the SOAR is an orchestration tool. So it's helping you basically expedite what you do in the SOC so that you can do more with less, essentially. And then we have an ITSM system, so a ticket management system. This may be considered a ticket management system, but typically, especially in big SOCs like where there's like a SOC as a solution where like a big company, think of any big company out there, they hire a third party to do all their analysis, right? They don't have an internal team. They may have a ticket management system so that they can show the client all the work that they've been doing, so they can basically make a case of why they need to keep getting paid for what they do. This is the type of environment I worked in when I first started out in cybersecurity. Jira is a project management system. The Hive, I thought that Hive was an Intel system, but it may be a ticketing system as well. All right, so one other thing, so we've talked about SOC engineers, kind of. We mentioned detection engineers, but there's also other engineers as well, and they're typically considered security engineers. And these folks could be managing the SIEM, they could be managing your EDR, they could be managing your network security stack, they could be managing anything in that security stack could be a SOC engineer. So it kind of encompasses quite a bit. So some folks really lean into that engineering side of the house. One of my really good friends, Sean, is definitely a really good engineer. He puts me to sleep when he talks sometimes, but we talk a lot about incident response as well. But engineering can be very fun for some folks and not for others. And then, of course, you got the SOC manager, the head honcho in the SOC that's kind of coordinating all the craziness going on. All right, so what is the number of alerts that we see in the SOC dashboard? So that's this here. We see what? We see 5 records, so we'll do it quickly. We only see 5 here, so we'll put that number in. Close this out. Boom. What is the name of the most recent alert you see? Let's look here. So here we want to look at them in terms of time. And let's just make sure they are in that order. So we have 1358, 1330, so they are, which means this one is the most recent one. And we'll check that off. So time is a really important item for folks, and it doesn't get enough love, right? When you're in a SIEM, when you're in a SOC, you're looking at different times. If you have a SOC that follows the sun, which means they have different groups of folks in different areas around the world, time needs to be consistent, right? Because everyone's in different time zones. So we need to be speaking the same language. And this comes into play if we're working a big incident around the clock and we're all using local time, it really skews the narrative and jacks that up. So we need to be speaking the same language. A lot of folks use Zulu or UTC time. Everyone uses the same time, so everything looks correct when we look at it chronologically. So time is very, very important. Time also comes into play when we look into the SIEM because we have the time the alert fired, we have the time the event occurred, and we have ingestion time. So there's lots of time varieties, so it can get you into trouble. You'll see what I mean once we start looking at SIEMs and stuff like that. It's a very interesting thing. Again, I'll say if you're just joining us, make sure to say hi in chat. Let me know what you did what you did cool this week. All right, so now that we know how alerts are generated, it's time to review their content. While the details differ for every SIEM, the alerts generally have a few main properties. So let's go look at one of these alerts. So typically you just click into one of them. Let's see how we do that. Here we go. And these are really just fields that are extracted from your SIEM typically, or they're built into the detection logic wherever it's at. And the idea is that we extract fields that are going to be important for the analyst and it's going to help them decide what to do next. So in this case, they're pulling in the description for the rule. So this is going to prevent them from having to go look up the logic for the rule. We can say, okay, it's looking for double extensions like pdf.exe or gif.link, and it could be a malicious executable. Okay, so we're looking to make sure there is a double link, and then we need to look at the file to see if it is good or bad. So that's what I mean by it helps us understand what we're looking at before we look at it. And we can see here for sure there is a double link. There's a .mp4.exe. We also have the MD5 hash. So for those of you who have been playing along and also studying on your own, the hash is great because we can throw this into something like virus total and it'll tell us, is this really bad or has it been seen before? So it's a really good indication. It helps us really analyze quickly, especially since they've extracted it for us. Other than that, we also have a user for the process, and then we have a host. So that points us to where is this occurring, which is obviously a very important part of triage. All right, so let's see what else. What is the verdict for the unusual VPN login location alert? So it's asking us to look into triage and take a peek at that very specific alert. Hey, Harrison, thanks for following along. Please let me know if you run into any issues. Happy to pause and get you caught up or get you straight for sure. And welcome. Thanks for joining. So this is the one here that they want us to look at. It has been closed, right? It is a medium alert. It is a false positive. And the person who did it was T. Ross, a level 1 analyst. So while we're looking through this, we want to make sure we know what we're looking at. This is going to be very important when you do get on the job. You need to be able to get yourself familiar. And a lot of stuff, thankfully, is pretty intuitive, a lot of stuff. So that means you can focus on the really important technical details and not have to worry about, I have to spend 20 hours learning this SIM. Well, this one in particular, you shouldn't have to do that. But, you know, Splunk, maybe. Maybe Splunk. All right, what's the verdict on it? So we're going to look. The verdict is that it was a false positive. Again, meaning it triggered, but what it found was not bad. What user was mentioned in the alert itself? So let's go into the alert. So this one right here. And let's see, the user access, this is the description, and this is the comment. So this is a field we haven't seen yet. Typically, and they're usually much bigger than this, typically when you work something, you put in notes about why are you marking it one way or the other. So when this is QA'd or looked at later, or something similar, maybe on the same host or for the same user triggers, they can look and say, oh, this other person marked it as bad, let me just double check it, or we're seeing really suspicious activity occurring for the same user on the same host, something like that. But we really want to make sure our notes are clear so that whenever someone comes back to look at our analysis, they don't have to redo our analysis to come to the same conclusion. We should have evidence for why we indicated whatever our verdict was, to use the language that they're using here. Harrison, what's something that's been getting in your way? Because I think you're looking at getting into the SOC as well, or are you already in the SOC and you're working on improving your skills? Where are you at today, Harrison? Just wanted to throw that out there because you've been on here a couple of times. So let's go find this user. What user was mentioned? So right here it says M. Clark, corporate CFO, confirmed that she is currently on vacation in Japan, but she had access to VPN. So they reached out to M. Clark and she said, yeah, that was me coming in from a different country. That does happen. It very much does happen. All right, let's move on to alert prioritization. In the US, we put a Z on that. So what country uses an S in that, in prioritization? Hey, what's up, Philippe? Welcome back, dude. Welcome back. All right, so again, we talked about this, right? Where different severities mean different things, and we always want to focus on the most severe alerts first. So this should be pretty easy, right? Should you first prioritize medium over a low? The answer should be no. Or, sorry, yes. my brain's not working. It's the end of the day. Don't pick on me, folks. Don't pick on me. I know someone's about to say something. It's okay. You can say something. All right. So should you prioritize a medium over a low? Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Should you take the newest alert and then the older alert? So this is a trick question, and I don't know what answer they want. But if it's the same severity, absolutely. How about if they're different severities? How do you get them? Well, it depends, right? If you have a medium that's been sitting on the board for 48 hours, do you pick it up before a recent severity? Probably not. But your policy at your organization could be different. In SOX, you work off of something called an SLA. So this is a service level agreement. And in that agreement, right, you have so much time to work each alert. Otherwise, there's usually some sort of penalty for your SOC, where if you miss it, you may have to give them a reduced fee for services that month or whatever the agreement is. Most folks don't really know what it is, but you're breaking SLA, meaning you're breaking your contract if you take too long to do it. So it could be, but I think their answer here they're looking for is yes. Or no, sorry, should be no. I'm just messing every answer up. There we go. All right, assign yourself to the first priority alert and change its status to in progress. The name of your selected alert will be the answer to the question. So let's go look at the alerts. We have only a handful that haven't been picked up, right? So we have 3. We have a low, we have a critical, and we have a high. The critical, even though it is a little bit older than the high, it's still the highest severity, which means we need to be picking this up. So we can do that. As soon as I can figure out how to do that, assigning me. So we'll save, it's assigned to us. We'll pick it up, or we'll just copy the name and drop it over here. So I encourage you, this may seem boring, but these are kind of those finer details that are going to separate you, where you can, when you are in an interview, some of these questions may pop up, but it's also going to help you get more familiar and be able to answer from a truer place of you've been there, done that a little bit, versus someone who's never done any type of work like this related to a SOC. You've probably just, read the SEC Plus, and maybe that's all you've done. And so you're under the mindset, and I've heard this quite a bit in interviews actually, where, hey, what do you do when there's a malware alert? Well, I'll see if the malware has detected it, and then I'll report it to someone else. Well, in the SOC, you're the person typically who needs to do the work. You should be investigating it. And so if you've done really good stuff, really good work, and try Hack Me and Hack the Box, you can answer from a place. This is what I would do if I was running the investigation, right? We don't ever hand stuff off. We work it until we can close it out. That's what we do. We're incident response folks. So keep that in mind. All right, we got a comment here from Harrison in chat. I'll throw it up on the screen for folks. He says, currently in a sysadmin position, but wanting to learn more about a SOC. Would a level 1 analyst only clear alerts from a rule in the SIM, or could someone email them an issue? So typically a level 1 analyst in the SOC is doing what we're doing here, where we're saying either this is good and we don't need to worry about it, or this is bad and we need to call a grown-up. So typically that's kind of the key. You're working these and then you're handing them off. And this is a type of role if you have, say, those SOC as a service positions out there. A lot of companies are doing it these days. They're outsourcing level 1 triage, which is, again, what we're doing here, where someone else is saying, whether this is good or bad, and getting rid of 95% of the work. And then they're hiring internally only the level 2 and above folks. So you'll see that a lot. Or you'll see, like in my SOC, where I have all the different levels. I even have 3 levels of analysts. My level 3s are specialists, my malware folks, my forensic folks, my threat hunters. So it just depends. In some analysts or some SOCs, there are no levels. Everyone is expected to do the same types of work, and you just take on more responsibilities as you grow within that SOC. But typically they do take emails, so the SOC is typically the center point for security problems. So you may have customers reach out and ask them questions about things. Hey, I got this phishing email, can you look into it? Or hey, someone called me and it sounded weird. Things like that. You're definitely getting issues coming in. Or in some cases, they may even bring infrastructure issues to you first. Say, hey, I can't get to anything. What do I do? So that does occur sometimes as well, if there's not a help desk. So good question, Harrison. Feel free to keep them coming. All right, we have potentially, here we go. So here's your triage. Maybe this will help answer that question a little bit. So where we're at now, we're kind of here at the beginning, right? We're prioritize the alerts and select the first one. So this is, we're going to select the highest critical one. If there are multiple of the same highest criticality, we choose the most or the oldest one, right? So we're going to assign that one to ourselves. Then we're going to, and if we haven't already, we're going to move it in progress. Typically, that's done at the same time and it's automated. We're going to read and learn about the alert. So pop, that one. And then in some organizations, there are playbooks. They're calling it an alert workbook here. But typically there may be a general one for certain types of things. So if there's a phishing email, maybe there's a playbook for that. If there is a malware alert, there could be a playbook for that. But there's usually some general playbooks of, well, what do we do? So we do the same consistent actions every time. So this is where it's saying if there is a playbook or workbook, to use the same language here, they're going to follow the steps in that. If there isn't one, we're going to use our own skills, our intuition to investigate the alert in the SIM and come up with a verdict, which is the next step here. And if it's bad, we're going to escalate that up to tier 2. If it's not bad, we're going to comment in the SIM. Excuse me. We're going to put a comment, close it out, and move on to the next one. And that's kind of what you do. So you'll get some pushback from people who've been in the SOC and like, oh, it's not that great. Sometimes all we do is close alerts out. Yeah, it can be that way in a very immature SOC. That's all you're doing. And it can be pretty frustrating where there's over a 90% false positive rate. Over 90% is a very common false positive rate, which sounds crazy when you haven't been doing it for a while, but it's very true. So most of the time you're closing out things that aren't bad, so you don't spend a lot of time looking at bad, believe it or not. So it's kind of crazy. All right, so let's go through here. Let's see, if you didn't receive a flag from your tree. Okay, so we actually have to do some triage here. So let's read through this, see what we're supposed to do. So initial steps are designed to ensure you take ownership. Let's go do that. I think what we didn't do was put it as in progress. So let's do that. We'll save it. I don't know if there's anything else we're supposed to do. We're probably supposed to add some kind of comment here. So let's see, understand who is under threat, blah, blah, blah. Note the action described in the alert, like whether it was suspicious, review the surrounding events. Yeah, absolutely. And use threat intelligence platforms or other available resources to verify your thoughts. So a few key things here, right? Note the action described in the alert. So whether it was suspicious, so understanding the alert is what I would summarize this as. Before you work an alert, you need to know what you're investigating. Otherwise, you're probably investigating the wrong thing. So make sure you know what you're looking at. And then we want to gain context. That's where number 3 comes in. We want to review the surrounding events. So just because it's a process, like based on maybe a process creation event, doesn't mean that's the only thing we look at. We may want to look at network logs. We may want to look at registry edits or anything else occurring around that time. Typically, attackers are kind of all over the place, right? They're not just doing one tiny thing. Not only that, but their actions may surface in multiple tools, multiple logs, and they may do so in a better way in some logs versus others. So it's really important, especially when you're a brand new analyst, to get a true understanding of what tools do I have, how do I use them, and what can I best leverage each tool for. Yeah, that was the sentence. What can I best leverage each tool for? And if you can do that, you're going to be in a really good place when you're starting to kind of get going in your first role. Now, threat intelligence platforms, number 4, these could be things like VirusTotal. You may have some internally as well that you can look at. Could be sandboxes, things like that that you can leverage to gain additional contextual information. That's going to be, I guess, the key word tonight is contextual. All right. So your decision here determine whether you found or missed the potential cyber attack. Some attacks like escalation or commenting will be explained. Then prepared your detailed comment explaining your analysis steps and verdict reasoning. Return to the dashboard and move it to a closed state. So let's go ahead and close this out. I would say without additional information, we don't really know. Like, we would actually have to dive in and investigate this much further to determine whether or not this is bad. This is Zoom. It could be data exfiltration. This is highly suspicious that they would be sending this much information out over Zoom. I doubt they would do that. So I would say, and we're just going to mark it as a true positive. High data, let's say, flow from or through Zoom. This is a really bad annotation, just for you people to know. So you could say something like, let's see, high data flow through Zoom was observed. We won't do the time because it was already detected. The data was a large zip file full of customer data from an internal user. The user was phished, blah, blah, blah. Right, so we actually want to make sure when we're writing these up, we're providing enough evidence that someone doesn't have to go back and reinvestigate what we did, and it should clearly prove our verdict, right? If we can't clearly prove our verdict, we're doing it wrong. If you don't understand it enough or don't have enough data to clearly say this is good or bad, escalate it. When in doubt, escalate. And if you screwed up in terms of escalating something that wasn't bad, guess what? You get to learn. And that's a good thing. I'm sure you won't do it again, especially if they're there and they coach you up and say, hey, try using these logs next time or this tool to validate this. So that is okay to screw up a little bit. So we'll go ahead and close this out. We'll mark it as a true positive, and we'll see what happens here. I don't know where we're supposed to be getting I don't know what we're supposed to be doing here. Let's see. We'll close these out. Let's see. Close verdict, true positive. We'll just type something in there. In progress, we'll go ahead and close it. We'll assign me. Oh, here we go. We'll claim that one. So this was the second priority, I think. And we didn't get one for this one. Oh, so they just want us to guess, I guess. Jeez, I hate, this is the stuff I'm not particularly a fan of here when they try to get you to play a game and it doesn't make sense. All right, let's look at this other one, see if we can get a good guess here. The rule detects any download from GitHub. Okay, Well, GitHub stores a lot of stuff. So this is a code repository for folks who've never heard of it. It can store a bunch of suspicious stuff. Absolutely could. I don't know. So they're pulling something from React from Facebook. React has had some issues. Facebook should be well-known repo. Probably we could actually pull that up if we wanted to and look at it. I would do this in, well, this probably won't be bad. So if it's the legitimate one, so it is verified meta. So this is a real one. I would say it's likely not a bad one. So we're going to close this one out. We'll do verdict false positive. It's not bad. And we'll say the assignee is me. And we're just going to type whatever in. So I think we got one wrong. So this is the third severity. Let's see. Can we restart that? Let's do this one, and we'll do this one. So this would have definitely been something I would have escalated because it is suspicious, and I would have dug in more. But they're saying it's not bad. 5 gigabytes is a lot to do over Zoom. Typically, I would expect it to be, they would do it through a file share or something like that, not Zoom. Simply because a lot of folks are worried about data going through an organization that's not their own. So if it's going through Zoom, it could potentially be going through a different company than their own, right? The same reason why we don't want to put sensitive data in a ChatGPT, because it's going through another company's systems that we have no control over. But again, if this is a common occurrence in your environment where a lot of data is going through Zoom, then this wouldn't have stood out to me, but I haven't seen that type of thing in any environments I worked in. So it was very odd to me. All right. So that is the first beginner room. Hopefully you folks got something good out of it. Harrison, were you able to follow along? Sorry the notes weren't great. There wasn't a lot to type about, but I can try to simulate how I would notate as best as possible without a lot of data on the next one if we want to. But yeah, are there any questions from folks watching us right now on both Twitch and YouTube? Is there anything I can answer or dive into before we move on to the next room? I want to make sure people are getting something out of this stream. Geez, I can't switch modals. Wow, I'm terrible. But anyways, I want to make sure you're getting something good that's going to help you progress in your journey. That's what we're trying to do here, is help folks like Harrison get out of a sysadmin role and into a SOC, or wherever you're at. If you're in college, into a SOC. All right. All right, look at that. We have one day. We did one day. All right, so let's go ahead and close this stuff out. We'll join the next room. So this is the reporting stuff. So we should be continuing down this road of understanding what happens in a real SOC environment. That's what we're doing here. So we've joined the room. So let me drop this in chat just in case Harrison wants to continue down this one. We'll throw that in there. And again, if you have any questions, we can dive in at any point. I'm here for you today. You have me for 2 hours. All right. So let's see. During or after triage, level 1 analysts may be uncertain about how to classify the alert. Fair. Requiring senior support or information from the system owner. They may also deal with real cyber attacks and breaches that need immediate attention and remediation actions. This room covers these cases by introducing 3 new terms: alert reporting, alert escalation, and communication. Now, I will say typically level 1s don't have a big role in actual true breaches. They may be pulling specific data or something like that, but they're not typically heavily involved because they don't have enough experience to do great investigations, right? If I gave you a task and said, go find bad, you may not have enough experience to be able to see bad when it's clearly bad to someone with experience. And this sounds crazy to some folks, but believe me, it is. Having the experience and the exposure is the game. If you don't have it, you're going to miss stuff. You're going to miss stuff anyways, but every time you miss something, as long as you learn, you're not going to miss it again. But this happens all the time, and it's something you really have to be careful of, especially leaders when you're involving the more junior folks. Are they equipped to help you with the tasks that you're providing them? That is the very big question you have to ask. Alrighty, so prerequisites is the room we just did. So let's go ahead and pop open the new dashboard and close this out. All right, so something very similar to what we had. Looks like some different alerts, but very similar indeed. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. I feel like we're going to be finished pretty quick tonight. And so start thinking about if you're going to hang out with me all the way the whole time on the stream tonight, think about what you want to do next tonight, because I think we're going to have some time to do some other playing. So keep that in mind. All right, so this is why companies outsource SIM or like level 1 or tier 1 work, is because these can be not just hundreds, but they can be thousands of alerts every day that need to be triaged. And of those that need to be further investigated, it could be 10, usually even less. It could be only a handful out of the day need someone higher level to investigate. And then out of those, in this case, you're saying one incident. Most SOCs don't have an incident very often. It's a very rare occurrence that you're working an incident unless you are an incident response team. Like my buddy, all he does is respond to incidents. He's always traveling all across the US responding to folks who've been like they've had ransomware run in their environment or some other type of cyber attack. He's that incident response guy. He is the guy that all he does is defer. That is it. And helping people get back on their feet. But in the SOC, that's not the case. Most of the time, we're just closing out these alerts. Very rarely will we see an incident. Very rarely. All right. Okay, so let's keep digging. Let's keep digging here. All right, so what is the process of passing suspicious alerts to a tier 2 analyst for review? So typically, this is called escalation. So alert escalation. I see we have a comment in chat. I'll get to you in a second. Let me answer this last question, and then I will read it. What is the process of formally describing alert details and findings? This will be alert reporting, annotation. Folks call it different things. Unfortunately, we don't have a standard vocabulary that everyone uses 100%. So this alert reporting, it could be, some people may use this as reporting metrics about the alerts and how they're annotated. Some people call it annotation or dispositioning. There's a lot of fun words here, but in this case, we're going to go with alert reporting. All right, Harrison's got something for us. I've heard a lot about how important baselines are. Can you talk about how you actually define one in your environment and how you use it to spot anomalies in the SOC? This is a great question. So baselines come into play in a couple of different ways. Like for a tier 1 or tier 2 analyst or level 1, level 2, baselines could be, hey, for instance, let's see, if we got like an odd executable running in the environment, we could say, hey, let's look at this hash. How frequently does it occur in the environment? If it's rare, if there's only 1 or 2, this is indeed an anomaly that may require further investigation. Same with a network. Same with a network connection. Is this the only time this has been reached out to? that seems pretty odd. Let's look into it. So baselines could mean different things. In the context of a detection engineer, when they're building out the detections, they look at the baseline, they run it. If they're getting 1,000 hits every day for their logic, they need to adjust it further to the baseline, just depending on what it is. So it could be simple as I'm trying to think. It could be, how about the Zoom one we were just talking about? There was 5 gigabytes of data going out over Zoom. If that is a normal baseline for the organization, that we're seeing so much data leaving the organization through Zoom every day, that's your baseline. And so you want to adjust any alerts that are or hitting on that type of stuff to be above whatever that baseline is. So say 5's pretty standard, maybe you're hitting on 6 or 7 gigabytes of data leaving, or even more. Just depends on what it is. So baselines can really come into play in a lot of different capacities. I'm trying to think of some other ways that folks are utilizing baselines as well. But I would say those are probably the most two common methods. Now, there are new detections that are coming in that are based on machine learning, where the models are actually learning and getting a feel for what's normal in the environment. And anytime something kind of goes outside of that normalcy, it will trigger. So that's a case of where it's being done kind of automatically in the back end with machine learning, and it's being utilized to trigger stuff. So there's quite a bit of security tools that will use that type of stuff, method for detections. I think most major SIMs actually have ML detections as well that look for variations from the baseline. So that's another way where it's done automatically, but it's still done for sure. Hopefully that answered your question, Harrison, and it made sense. Have you heard of any other contexts where anomalies and baselines are mentioned that you would like for me to dig into? All right, while Harrison is answering, let's keep chugging along here. So before we move on, it is essential to clarify why anyone would want a level 1 analyst to write reports in addition to marking them as true or false positive, and why this topic cannot be underestimated. So yeah, we talked about this one in the last time. It provides context, and these are kind of your grunts of the SOC, essentially. Sorry, you're a grunt. You're the cyber grunts. So it definitely helps. It's a lot easier to get lower tiered analysts as well. It's much more difficult to get higher tiered analysts. So yeah. Let's see. So provide context. We talked about safe findings for records. Yeah. So this could be something where if this turns out to be within the baseline, within normalcy, that maybe a user is doing a particular thing, then they can adjust that or add it to the detection logic so that you don't have to work it anymore. Once they create a detection and they build out the logic, it can change. There's nothing that says once it's created, it never changes. Some analysts don't ever recommend changes, but I definitely encourage you to, because it makes your life better. Because I, for one, came at it with a passion anytime I worked in a SOC, because I never wanted to do the same dumb thing twice. So I was always putting in, they call it whitelist tickets or exception tickets, whatever you want to call it, for a whitelist, or maybe even suggestions for additional logic. I also did that. Let's see. Here are the 5 whys. This is pretty common that you'll see this. Some people have moved away from the 5 W's, but this is still a really good way to think about it. And you can think of yourself as like a detective on a police force, right? You want to know who did the thing, what did the thing, or what action occurred, when did it happen, and where did it happen. So this could be your IP, your host name, things like that, and then why. Why is a really good question to be able to answer well, because just because you can see that something occurred, that doesn't tell you anything. You need to understand why. So for instance, if command.exe ran, it may not be a bad thing. It could be an admin doing something. But if it was executed from Word or an Excel document, that context really brings to the forefront that this is now suspicious. The why makes this more suspicious. Why it was triggered by Word, and then we look into Word. Why was it triggered by Word? Maybe there was a macro embedded in it that executed it, though not very likely these days, but it could be a thing. Or maybe even a PDF, right? Command.exe spawned from a PDF. That's suspect. So the why is the most important part of your job. Get used to continue asking yourself why. This, and this. Well, why? Well, why? Well, why? And if you can answer that enough times, you will be deep enough to say, hey, I actually have a good handle of this alert, and I'm pretty confident in the results of the investigation. All right, so according to the SOC dashboard, which user email leaked the sensitive document? So we're looking for something about sensitive document. All right, so sensitive document shared to external. So we're looking for the user. Which user was it? And we're looking for here target email, source user. So let's talk about these fields real quick, please. So we know description, but what we haven't seen is like a source user email, a source user department, a target user email. So the fields will not always be the same typically. They will depend on the type of alert and even the type of log that these things came from. And simply because not every log or not every alert will have the same fields. That's just how it is, right? If it's a process creation log, you may not have a ton of network information or even information about the user except for they did the thing. If we have a network detection, you're probably not going to have any or a ton of information about the user or the host because it's network. It is a network. It's IP based. Maybe you have headers and stuff there related to the packet itself. So it just depends, right? Some things make sense for specific logs. Other times it doesn't make sense, right? Would you have networking stuff if there was, I'm trying to think of a fun one, a user was added to the system? Is there going to be user information? Not user, is there going to be IP or network information in there? No, it's a system level event. There's no network activity, but if you looked around that in other logs, you may see network activity. So very confusing explanation, but it just depends on what the log is, what the alert is. That's the type of fields you will see here. So in this case, the source user, because sensitive document shared to external, if we read this, it says a Google document stored inside an important folder was shared outside the organization to a personal email. So let's look at that. So the source, this would be the company, and the personal email would be the Proton email. So we can say this was the source person, and we should be good. All right, looking at the new alerts, who is the sender of the suspicious likely phishing email? So email marked as phishing. Let's go take a peek at that one. And this is going to be recipient, so we want sender. So this seems odd. Let's see what the question is again. Looking at who is the sender of these suspicious things. Maybe this is it. Yep, that was it. I was confused because of the stuff in here didn't make sense. Oh, we got our first spam bot of the day in here. Welcome, spam bot. I always like looking at the names of these spam bots. You may not be able to see it. It always comes from Twitch. Somehow it gets into every stream. It's so bizarre. All right, so open the phishing alert, read its details, and try to understand the activity. Using the 5Ws template, what flag did you receive after writing a good report? So phishing alert. Let's write a good report. So Is this the only phishing one? That is indeed it. Okay. So who, what, when, where, why. So we can say who. So M. Boslin sent an email to this. So who, what. So they sent this spreadsheet. So employee records, which is a spreadsheet externally. And, oh, I'm looking at the wrong one. Jeez. All right, so let's do it on this one. So email was classified as phishing. So we're going to say that the sender was Microsoft, sent an email to Eddie Huffman, so our IT manager, and sent some kind of RAR file. So this is our archive file. Email was classified as phishing post-delivery after an automated analysis. So what that means is there's probably a sandbox that was utilized by the email system. There's a bunch out there. And it detonated. That's the fun word they use because it sounds sexy, I think, right? They detonated the malware. They observed malicious activity, and they decided it was malicious after it ended up in the inbox for the user. The body keyword says 600% price increase, urgent notice, download the report, read the details. So really they're doing some of that urgency stuff that we see a lot of phishing folks do. All right, sorry, this is what I was supposed to do. I wish I could move this so I could see the analysis here. So let's do something. Let's do get rid of my malicious payload here. All right, let's make this a little bit smaller. Here we go. And I can't see that either. All right, maybe we'll shrink that. How about that? There we go. All right, so let's type up our notes here. We can do this one a little bit more succinct. So we can say, we'll use the date. So this is kind of what time, let's see, on blah, blah, blah. We'll say this. Since a malicious file, and we'll call it, I thought there was a file name here somewhere. Here it is. Report rar.exe to the user here. All right. I always like to put my usernames and my proper names in quotes. I don't know why I do that, but I just do. So people realize it's all in one thing, maybe? I don't know. Let's see. To the user, blah, blah, blah. The file was delivered successfully and determined malicious by automated analysis. Let's see, body keywords. Send a malicious file, blah, 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 to user to blah, 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 with the subject line. So the reason I would choose to put these in here, and I'd actually put a lot more stuff in here too if I was investigating, is because if you're using this as kind of an archive, as a repository of like the history of your organization, there may be times where this alert pops up a lot more and maybe the subject line is the same or the file name is the same, which is typically what happens in a phishing campaign. So whenever, say, an adversary gets a list of user accounts or email accounts, they send the same thing to all of them. So it typically follows a pattern. Those patterns are called IOCs, indicators of compromise. Now, this is pretty common. And so by adding as much information as possible to this, another analyst will be able to look at this and say, hey, this was the same thing that happened on mine. This is a campaign, and it kind of helps piece the story together. Because if we're starting to see, like we see these from Microsoft, but what if they were from a try hack me email? That means a user was successfully phished, and now they're phishing from an internal perspective. They had a business email compromise, and now that user is emailing all these people. I actually worked a few of those this year. It's a thing. So moral of the story, the more information, the better from a historical perspective. Hopefully that makes sense to all you folks. And again, we'd usually put a lot more here. There's just not a lot of detail because we're not in a true sim, sadly. RIP. All right, so we'll mark this as closed because we're done. Again, typically the flow is I'm going to mark it as in progress while I do my investigation. Once I finish my conclusion, we'll mark it as closed. We'll give it a verdict, and we'll assign it to ourselves. Actually, we do that when we mark it as in progress. Let me say it again. When we pick up an alert, we'll mark it as in progress, assign it to ourselves, and that's it. And we'll save it. And then once we're ready, once we're done with our investigation, then we change the status to close, we change the verdict to whatever that happens to be, and we add our comments. That's how you do it. All right, so there we go. Let's close this one out. Beautiful thing. Okay, so escalation guide. Let's move into this. Let me know if you can't see my screen. I want to make sure everyone can see my screen. I know I have a little bit of a big screen. I don't have one of those obnoxiously big screens, but it may be very big for you or small for you if you're on a laptop because it's a lot smaller form factor. So I can always zoom in. If you have trouble reading, not a problem. Just let me know, folks. All right, so after you have a verdict and you wrote your report, you must choose whether or not to escalate the alert to level 2. So in this case, this is most certainly something we would escalate because it is in fact bad and we want our folks to get on it, pull together those IOCs, see if there's any other phishing emails in the inboxes anywhere, right? Believe it or not, that's one of the tools in an enterprise environment. I can take the subject line and I can search everyone's inbox to see if it is anywhere else. And I can also determine have they actually looked at it or not. If they haven't, I can preemptively yank it out of their inbox, and I can actually do that across the entire enterprise. I can yank all those malicious emails out, purge them, so that no one else falls victim to this. So that is one of the things that you have at your disposal, and that may be something a tier 2 would do versus a tier 1. But that's another one. We could also do keywords in the body, perhaps. We can go in there and say, like if there was a malicious user, we can, so like an internal user was sending out all the phishing emails, we can go in and see all the people that they sent it to, and do whatever we need to do to follow up. Maybe inform them if they're a customer or a partner, things like that. So there's a lot of cool stuff you can do. Let's see. So communication with customer partners, management, law firm. So remediation actions. So these are something that a lot of new analysts miss in an interview for a SOC analyst. They just say, hey, I will run antivirus on the system and it will take care of stuff. Probably not. That is very 1990s outlook on antivirus. Don't be the person that says that in an interview. Please don't do that. They might chuckle at you. Thanks, Harrison, for letting me know. These are things that you would actually do, right? If the user downloaded that RAR file, and we can kind of type this up, right? So if the action was 1, user receives malicious email, 2, user downloads attachment, 3, user, so at this point, users downloaded it, they haven't executed it. We're more concerned about execution. If we say user executed attachment, or let's say user unarchived .rar for user executed file. Now we have a problem. User has executed the file. We need to isolate the host. Then we need to look to see who else has this host talked to, communicated with after the execution. We need to reset credentials probably. There's a whole slew of things we should be doing as part of our incident response process to ensure, like the goal here, right, is to limit the amount of damage that occurs from an attack. The faster you can do that, the better off you're going to be, right? If we're slow at responding to these, which is the whole reason for the SLA, by the way, if we're slow to responding to these, if we are slow at responding to these, there you go, there's proper English, then more damage is occurring, right? Think about a fire, right? If I lit a leaf on fire with a lighter in the middle of a forest, the longer it sits there burning, the wider that fire is going to get, and it could turn into a forest fire, right? That's actually how forest fires start. In some cases, right, someone's smoking a cigarette or whatever, they throw it on the ground, it catches leaves, it spreads. That's exactly what happens in the cybersecurity world. The longer something, malware stays active or an intruder stays in the system, the bigger the problem you have on your hands. The bigger the problem. You're giving them time to set up persistence mechanisms, to migrate to other systems, move laterally. Well, the longer they have to do destruction, right? Destructive activities, actions on the objective, that's another way folks say it. A lot of problems. So you want to move to prevent the widespread stuff first. Then you need to make sure you've identified everyone in every system that has been potentially compromised. And then once you do that, once you do your cleanup actions, then you can say, we're good, we saved the day. They're not going to get back in that way. But a lot of the piece too, just to add on to that, the big piece that a lot of analysts miss, even professional analysts who've been in the SOC for years, they miss is that if they don't find the origin, how did they get in, they're going to get right back in. They're going to get right back in. Like I've had cases where I've worked where there was a backdoor to a web server, and the IT admins see that that the attacker was running commands with the web shell, cool, and they were doing it from an admin perspective. So they just changed the admin creds, and there's like, well, that's what we typically do, right? We just change the creds, it kicks folks out. No, if the attacker has a web shell, if you don't remove that web shell and change the credentials and identify if there was an actual vulnerability that they abused to set up their access, they're going to get right back in, right? If we just change credentials, they're just going to use their web shell to set up persistence. If we just got rid of the web shell and we change the user credentials, but they utilize an exploit like say SQL injection or something like that, and we didn't fix that, all they have to do is rerun their exploit and they're right back in. So we have to make sure as defenders, we clean up everything, or we're going to be doing it again. And the damage is just going to keep going and going until we figure it out. So keep that in mind. That is a really, really important part of being a defender. Alrighty, so that was a fun explanation. So to escalate the alert, in most cases, all you have to do is reassign the alert to a tier 2 or a level 2 on the shift, ping them in corporate chat or in person, and may require formal written escalation. That's true. It changes depending on the organization. Eventually, the level 2 will work it, and they'll typically jump all over it because they like to do the fun stuff. All right, let's see if it wants us to do anything here. So let's see, move the alert to in progress status and do the analysis. Write an alert report and set your verdict to true positive. Assign it to a tier 2 and they receive notification. Let's see, which one are we supposed to do? Reflective load? Let's see, do we have that one? Let's see, we're looking for, I don't see any of that. Which one? All right, here we go. Who is the current level 2 on the SOC dashboard that you can assign, escalate the alerts to? So this is important, right? If you assign it to someone who is not actually working, it won't get done. And they'll keep doing their thing. The bad guys will keep winning. All right, what flag did you receive after correctly escalating the alert from the previous task in L2? If you correctly escalated the alert earlier, just edit the alert and click save again. I don't know what alert they're talking about. So is it one of these? It says edit the alerts, in progress, true positive, save. How about this one? Who is the current tier level 2 that you can assign, escalate the alerts to? What flag did you receive after correctly escalating the alert from the previous task? What is the previous task? Was it in here? We got this one already. So maybe this one? Let's try this one. That's fine. We're not going to change that. True positive. We'll escalate it. We'll throw something here. Last 50 characters. There we go. Jeez. They actually want me to do a full thing. How annoying. How annoying. I don't know if this is the right one, but we'll give it a go. All right, so let's do something similar. So we're going to say, we'll do it down here. We'll say on March, blah, blah, blah. Let's see, we want, so this, if you don't know, is the highest level permissions you could get on the system besides being in the kernel. So that's pretty good time. On, we'll say the user into authority system on the host, and I just specify whether it's a host or user just so it makes more sense, because this could be a user just as likely. Let's see. Executed from rev shell. So I'm assuming they made it pretty obvious that it was a reverse shell from the parent process. Let's see if this is enough. Not a very good annotation, but of course, not a ton of great information. So we'll do in progress, say true positive, we'll escalate it to our buddy. It says my comment doesn't provide enough context, really. Hey Harem, welcome to the show, which is playing the game of Try Hack Me at the moment. Authenticity, 75. Who, what, we did win. Let's say this. I wonder how it's judging that this is a reverse shell that gives them access to run arbitrary code. Did we get it? Who, what, when? Trying to think what else they want us to add to this darn thing. Let's see. Are we missing anything? Oh, here we go. We're probably missing this. They executed the command. So this is kind of a lot of stuff. It's multiple commands. So dir, listing the directory, getting the host name, getting the username, getting the users in domain admins, and I think this gets domain or domain controller, I think. So this is a bunch of commands. It's kind of goofy the way they did them, but all good. All right, so it likes that now. Not false positive, true positive. All right, let's get it over here to this guy. And we'll throw this in here. I don't know which one this is. Flag you received from the second one. If you correctly escalated the alert earlier, just edit the alert and click save again. So is it one of these? Or is it this one? Oh, we did that one. How about this one? Oh my goodness, here we go. Which one are we missing here? Does anyone know? What flag do you receive after escalating the previous task? Can we restart? So these were already marked as true positive, but we already escalated. This is the last one, so this should be the first one. So let's try this one, see if this does it. True positive, level 2. Save. Maybe that's it. Playing the game of this. Oh, it kind of. Yeah, we're trying to figure this crap out. What is going on here? I'm not sure which one it wants because we submitted this one. There are definitely free rooms, Harem. There's definitely some free stuff out there. For not everything is free. I don't know if this one is free. Let's see if it is part of the rooms. You can easily go into these and it'll tell you if it's part of the free tier or not. So they definitely have some introductory ones that are free. So let's see. So these are the ones we're working. Where are they at? Where does it tell you? I'm trying to find them for you, buddy. So here we go. So with the challenges right here, right, you just change subscription type to free, and then you can see all the ones you can do. There's quite a bit. There's 2 pages worth. So you have quite a bit you can do. Hack the Box has a bunch of free ones as well. I think the whole sock path is free or mostly free as well. All right. The most frustrating parts of some of these is figuring out which one it's asking for. Who is your current that you can assign? He's in 2. And we've edited both of these. I don't know which one it's asking for. We've gotten the flags from both of these. And neither one of these are giving us a flag. I might cheat and figure out what someone else has done on this one, because I don't know. It could be just something dumb. So I'm gonna look it up just so I don't waste time doing this, because I don't know. There's only 2. We've used them. Unless there is a help button. Sometimes there is. No, there's no help button here. Just edit the alert and click save. There isn't a previous task. Because we got this one and we gave it to him. And then we tried to do it again and it didn't work. So I don't know what they're asking. I don't know what they're asking, folks. Let's see which one we're under here. We're under escalation guide. Reporting, escalation guide, the alert. On the drop-down menu, let's see, 7. What flag did you receive after correctly? If you oh, it is the same flag. Why would they have you do the same flag twice? I did paste that in there, but it broke it up and made it look weird. So see this? Like I don't understand why it's doing that. Very bizarre. Look at that. I don't know. So we did do it right. It's just goofing it up. Because they say it should be E. Fleming, which we got, and then we pasted this in there and it didn't work. Let's try to clear it out. And it does the same thing. All right, I give up. All right, we'll move on to the next one. This is so dumb. All right, so escalation and reporting topics should sound straightforward and logical to you, but it always is easier said than done. Cool. In the best scenario, SOC team has its own crisis communications procedure. Yeah, absolutely. Typically, you'll hear the word like war room thrown around where they find stuff, and if it turns into a pretty big deal, right, besides just a simple phishing and they were able to contain quickly, if there's like ransomware, they'll set up a war room, they'll set up a call that's out of band so that the attackers or adversaries aren't able to listen in. They do this whole thing because it's a priority, right? They need to contain stuff now so that they don't hurt the company worse than it already is being hurt. Let's see. The alert about Slack team's compromise requires you to validate the login. You receive an overwhelming number of alerts during a short period of time, some of which are critical. After a few days, you realize that you misclassified the alert and likely missed a malicious action. Let me tell you, this is going to happen to every analyst somewhere one day, whether it is truly malicious, whether it's a red team, whether it's a pen test. This is going to happen to you. Don't let it hurt your feelings too bad. Take the hit, and then figure out why you missed it and change your process. So this is why I'm very heavy on folks having a methodology and following the methodology, because it's a consistent thing. And if you are following that methodology when you misclassified something, then you just really have to only analyze what you did, tweak whatever the issue is in there, and then you're off to the races again, and you're not going to miss that type of thing again in the future. So methodology is a very, very good thing for you folks. All right, final thing is you cannot complete the alert triage since the SIM logs are not parsed correctly or are not searchable. Yeah, this is true too. Sometimes our tools break. The engineering, there's something wrong, and we have to call in those engineers to come fix stuff. It happens. They expect it. So don't feel bad if you need to ask for help. Should you first try contact your manager in case of a critical threat? Yeah, probably. Oh, it's no. Why did they say that? Ensure you find emergency contacts. So I will say if you're tier 1, typically you are not to call the tier 2. So you're going to call whoever is up next. Oh, Henry's on here. Hi, Henry. Yep, adapt, exactly. Adapt and learn. Adapt forward, some may say. So they're saying you want to escalate to a tier 2 first. That works too. So if you have a tier 2, definitely talk to them. Think of them as a big brother or big sister. They can help you and kind of fact check before you call the customer. Last thing you want to do is wake your customer up at 3 in the morning and it be a false positive. They won't be very happy. They'll be pretty upset at you. So, don't be afraid to, but definitely do your due diligence before you wake someone up. All right, should you immediately contact your level 2 if you think you missed an attack? If you missed something, probably. Trying to think if there's a better route to go. You should definitely be looking at someone in your hierarchical structure. That's a mouthful there. So the answer they're looking for is yeah. All right, so that is it for this room. Even though we still have this one open and it's not taking our answer because it's stupid try hack me. I don't know why it's being dumb. I don't. Let me try another room. Maybe they changed something. Let's try one more. This one had a different answer. There we go. I like to close these out. All right, so that's 2. So we can decide what we want to do. So for folks who have been on here the whole time, is there anything you would like me to dive into? We got about 30 minutes to have some fun with stuff. If not, we can do some malware dev. I think I know what my issue is for the DLL we were playing with the last week. But yeah, I mean, I'm game to do anything tonight. So this was really like that basic knowledge level stuff. It sounds pretty boring, but it is very important to understand kind of what the workflow is, how alerts are handled, what the escalations look like. These are all good things to do as well. Or we can hack. I need to get ready for an interview anyway, so we could hack. We could do that. So hack or write malware. What are we doing tonight? Hacking or malware? Hacking or malware? Tough choices. I know. Super tough choices, folks. Let's see. CD downloads. We'll do some hacking. How about that? Maybe we'll find something cool to do. Which one is LS tag LA? Yeah. Which one's the newest? August 21, July, October. All right, so we'll use this open VPN. That one. All right. Oof. We'll say open. There, we'll do it one more time. So sometimes you'll run into issues that if you're trying to do VPN in Kali and you don't have sudo privileges, it's not going to work. Probably something to do with sockets or something. That's a network cool person's thing. All right, so let's close all these tabs to the right. Let's go find something to hack. Let's hack all the things. So let's do red. Let's put on a red hat tonight. Let's do not started. Let's do medium. And let's play. Let's see. Test your recon, fishing skills. I don't want to fish. CTF room based on old time. Survivor horror. I kind of want to do a boot to Rooch. Be quiet, no shouting inside the biblioteca. That one's 180 minutes. That's a pretty long one. Let's see if we can find a shorter one. It's probably a container, I bet. Oh, it's Linux. I'm going to do a Windows box. Can we do Windows? The one thing I dislike about this is that it will reset. Let's do subscription. All right, let's see if we can find user evasion skills upon a Windows target with an updated defense mechanism. Maybe. It sounds like a good one. Azure, I think you need something for that. Use red teaming techniques to bypass a WAF. AI, don't want to do AI. I don't really enjoy AI challenges. They're usually some kind of prompt engineering and the prompt can't be done consistently. It's kind of annoying, so I don't like those. Ooh, print nightmare. This is a good one. Let's do print nightmare. All right, will it let me start a room? So let's join the room. Start the machine. We'll give it a second to start up. So print nightmare is a pretty famous vulnerability. I don't know, it had to be 5 or 6 years old by now. It's pretty old. But it gives you the ability to do privilege escalation on a host once you get access. I don't think you can do it to get initial access, but you can certainly do privilege escalation with it. So it's a good time. All right, so after discovering the print nightmare attack, the security team pushed an emergency patch to all the endpoints. Print nightmare exploit used previously no longer works. All is well. Unfortunately, the same 2 employees discovered yet another exploit that can possibly work on a fully patched endpoint to elevate their privileges. Inspect the artifacts on the endpoint to detect the print nightmare discovered. Oh man, this is a blue team one. Lame. Okay, so I guess we're extending our blue team fun this evening. So hang in there while it's starting up. So this will be part of an investigation, but feel free to continue asking questions. If you got any questions, I'm here to answer them. It's a good week. It's a good week to ask those questions. And I guess I'll go ahead and do a shameless plug too. If you're not part of the Discord community, make sure you're joining it. Make sure you're asking questions, even on YouTube or Twitch. Ask questions in there in between our sessions. These happen every Thursday, same time, so 7 to 9 Eastern time. But we're always on the Discord channel. My podcast co-host is also in there, and some of my friends as well. So lots of expertise in there, lots of experience. So if you have questions, if you are trying to break into the world of cybersecurity, lots of brains in there to help you figure out how to get in there. So it's a good time. And everyone is super passionate, super helpful. Even Mr. Henry Hudson that was in here, he is super cool. He used to be one of my supervisors back in the day, and actually right now is actually for a little bit longer anyways. A very cool guy. He's done a lot of really cool stuff. So lots of the InfoSec community is very, very small. It's kind of amazing. Every time I go work somewhere, it seems like someone there knows someone else I've worked with in another place. It's pretty bizarre, pretty wild, but it just shows you how small the community is. Really, really, really. And you even figure that out when you go to conferences out there like DEF CON or the B-Sides, local B-Sides, simply CyberCon, that's coming up in Charleston at some point. All those little conferences, you get to meet people in real life and make those connections that will survive for a long, long time. Not to mention, it's just really good networking. Out there, I put out that I was open to work this week as my contract wraps up, and lots of people reached out, got interviews and stuff lined up already, just because of the strength of the network and the cool people that I know. So really good, really encourage you to network. I will say that networking is probably the most effective way to land a job these days. It is insane how difficult it is to get through those ATS systems. I really, really want to get an HR person on our podcast. So C-Suite Cyber, if you haven't heard of it, it's in the links. But I really like to get a person on there to walk us through their workflow, what they look for from the HR piece. So for those of you who don't know, while this is still loading, the hiring process isn't about just getting your resume to a hiring manager. Sure, that's one component, but HR is the initial filter. You got to get it through HR. You got to get it through that ATS system. You got to get it through the HR systems into the hands of a hiring manager. Now, sometimes, especially networking and whatnot, you can get it directly in the hands of the hiring manager if they're willing, and they can say, hey, HR person, put them in the workflow. I want to interview this person. So that's a good shortcut. But otherwise, you have to figure out how to get through that system. And it is this big, black, mysterious box that no one seems to know how to work. So it is pretty wild. All right, I think we have our box after waiting forever. Let's pop open, we'll pop open Wireshark. I'm gonna also pop open this log file. Let's see what's in these things. So we're looking for what remote address did the employee navigate to. I'm expecting maybe some of it will be in network traffic. Depending on what the log file is, we may have that as well. The log file will tell us the username, especially if we have event 3s. If the user was passed as part of the network traffic, we'll see it in Wireshark. So these are things to think about as well. What is going to be where do I need to look to find this specific information? That's what I do in my head all the time. I definitely encourage folks to be doing it as well. If you're wondering why I have Band-Aids on my hand, by the way, I just started climbing again this week after like a year break, and my hands from being a keyboard warrior are so soft. They just shredded my hands at a like hour-long session in the gym. So I forget, they call them flappers, where like it just flapper your skin just comes off of your fingers. So I got 3 flappers on my hand, and they're not very fun. You have a flapper really quick as soon as you get in the shower after climbing, because they burn like nobody's business. So it's a really good time. I don't recommend. I recommend the climbing, but I don't recommend the flappers. All right, is this going to open up for me or is it not? Oh, it's Procmon. Okay. Okay, that's interesting. So Procmon is a good tool. Looks like it's applying some sort of filter. We'll let it do its thing. Let's see what type of traffic we got here. TCP, HTTP. Let's look at this traffic. We'll just follow it along. We'll follow the HTTP traffic because we want to see that. So the question is, what remote address did the employee navigate to? Well, we don't know who the employee is in this case. This is HTTPS because we can't even see this. That's fun. But we could probably get the IP. Well, for sure we could get the IP. So this could be it. here. So if we did like 95, 101, 143, 16, but we don't know that it's the particular user. So it's not even, that would be just a guess, I would say, because we don't understand enough about what's going on yet to make that determination. It is an external traffic though, for sure, just based on the IPs. So it looks like there's a lot of TLS traffic. Here's the printer attack. Let's see. This is probably it here. 20, just based off of the mask here, this is probably the IP here. And it is external IP. So you can see it doing all kind of stuff. What I'm doing right now is I'm just filtering on this. So we can say IP.adder. And this is just the fun language of Wireshark. Sorry, not 10. We want 20.188.56.147. So I'm just doing this because we saw it doing the print type stuff, and I want to see where it originates. Like how did they start interacting with the environment, essentially. So we got some negotiation. This is all SMB traffic here. We can see it based off the port and the protocol. Session setup. Looks like we got some errors here. Still got some errors here. So just waiting to see if there's anything else. So it looks like SMB traffic. We have printer traffic. What else do we have? So here's NetShare enum. There we go. Print Nightmare, Gentle Wiki. It's just kind of weird that this is an external IP doing this. Does anyone think that's weird? I think it's weird, but I guess it could be a thing. All right, per the PCAP, which user returns a status logon failure? So this could be probably here. Forget which header this is in, but it should be in here somewhere. Might not be as part of the negotiation. I'm trying to remember at what part of the header is the authentication information. So more processing required, auth user. What's this say? Let's make this bigger so we can look at it. So what does it say? Status logon failure, session setup requests. So this would be R. Jones. So this is definitely a failure, and we can see it there. So we just need to find where the heck that information is at so we can copy it. Because I don't want to type it in. Oh, man. All right, let's copy value. Man, I'm getting tired. Why am I getting tired? And then we'll copy R. Jones because I'm lazy. All right. Hello, welcome if you're just joining us today. We are doing an investigation, utilizing some network logs at the moment. We'll see what else pops in here. But if you're here learning about SOC stuff, we're doing some, not necessarily tier 1 work, but we are doing some higher level SOC work. So feel free to ask questions as we go through this. And yeah, follow along. If you're not part of the community on Discord, do it. Do it. All right, so we do have the print Spooler one, which is right here, Gentile guest. That's a fun one. It must be a gentle nod to GentleWiki, the creator of the infamous Mimikatz. If you don't know that one. Let's do that. I should have did. Is it 0? It is 0. Okay. No, he was correct. Gentile. Yes. My goodness, dude. It's in Spanish. Let me see. I'll put it on the screen here. I'll do a translate. And then you put it in English. I appreciate you. Let's see. What you said. Can't stay long. So I dropped a follow. I wanted to support your journey. I can connect with a big Twitch streamer who pulls 1,000 viewers. Blah, 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 blah. Oh my gosh. So fun. So fun. Let's see. This did look like it was successful. Which user successfully connects to the SMB share? So it does look to be successful. Just because we saw a pretty clear login failure right after session setup. And we didn't see one here. Gentile guest. I mean, it seems like it was correct, but it doesn't look like it was correct. Print night 0. Let's see if there's another one. So one of the things we can do is we can say, hey, let's apply this as a filter. And selected. Oh, it won't let me do it. Why not? Apply as a filter. Yeah, I'm not sure why it's not letting me apply it as a filter. Let's try typing in ourselves. And proto. Let's try this. Didn't like that one. Will it not let me do that? That's weird. Let's see if we can get it to add more here. Just playing with it here, seeing if we can get it to do something else. We may be able to do apply filter here. It's not letting us right click and apply filters. That's kind of a little bizarre. It won't let us filter on SMB. Let's see if we can apply as filter, and there we go. All right, so just and SMB2. Okay, so let's take a peek, see if we can find a success, see what a success looks like in the logs here, and that may help us out. We got about 12 minutes. So if you have a question about cybersecurity, get your question in. You got 12 minutes. We can make sure we take care of you. So this is all print spooler stuff. Maybe they're talking about the command on the back side of print spooler executing correctly so we can see the drives and stuff being created. I would expect it to happen after this. Mimi spool. Let's beam down the Mimi cats. So we should see all this crazy print spooler stuff end, and then a success somewhere, I would guess. Close, close, close. Did we see it successfully run? I don't see success in here. There's probably a better way to filter this out, but we could filter it on a successful authentication. If we could find a successful authentication, then we can filter on that format and say, hey, we just want to see these. So we're still looking. So I was wrong. There wasn't one after, at least what we see so far. But so here's our error again. R. Jones is the error. And it looks like Kiwi is correct. Let's see, as printable text. Let's see if this helps. Maybe I just pasted it wrong. I don't know. That looks a little crazy, doesn't it? Oop, cancel. Let's see. Usually you can just copy this. All right, fine. We'll look at it in here. Because we did copy it out of here before. So it's print. I thought there was a way to copy it from the info column, but that is not the case, at least at the moment. I mean, it still may be the case, but so that looks exactly the same. We may have done the wrong, we may have put the slash the wrong direction. That's what we did. Even though it's in the right direction here, this is the goofy stuff that drives me nuts in THM. You waste so much time playing around with stuff. Like, we should have had that answered correctly, and I should have looked at that slash, but also should have been the other way because the documents have it the other way. But whatever. You know what grinds my gears? All right, so what is the initial drive that it connects to? So IPC, that's pretty common. You'll see it open a lot of times, but there's not a ton you can do with it generally. All right, so that looks good. All right, what is the first remote share the endpoint connected to? What was the first file name? What was the second? Okay, so it wants us to give it file names. So first one's going to be network interface, creative file request, serve SVC. And I think it's the same. Let's see if there's another one. Nope, spools S is probably the other one. It wants spool SS. There we go. That's what it wants. All right, from which remote SMB share was malicious DLL obtained? What was the path to the remote folder for the DLL? So now we're looking for a malicious DLL that was done or sent over during a file transfer. And we saw some of those when we were scrolling through this. We actually looked right at it. We might be able to finish up tonight. Let's see. Where are we at? We could probably just look up DLL, like do a string search, and it may find it. So the first one, create response file. So this is probably the file, but it likely won't give us the full path in here, I doubt. So what we're probably going to have to do is look up here, get this, so it's probably this plus the file name. So we take this, copy the value, and then we just need to make sure it's in the appropriate format. So I think it wants a comma. And then what was the path to remote folder? How about the second? So I don't know exactly what it's looking for here. I'm imagining it's looking for this. And we want this right here. Copy that value. I'm copying the value so I don't have a typo. But stuff happens. We'll see. And then we have this one. And we'll copy that one as well. And then we'll go ahead and check. We'll go ahead and check our answer. Answer is incorrect. I bet our formatting's off, and so it hates us. Let's try spaces. Doesn't like it. Let's see. Answer format, period, period, period. See if we can get it correct. But only one stands out in association to a hack tool. Brim will be the most useful. Brim. So there's a bunch of DLLs here. So I don't know from which remote SMB share was a malicious DLL obtained. What was the path to the remote folder for the first DLL? How about the second? Answer, comma, answer, answer. So we provided the answer, but it doesn't like the answer. It's probably from the remote share. So we might just have the remote share wrong, perhaps. Now that I'm thinking about it, the print's wrong. I think we should have another one in here somewhere. Hello, if you're just joining us, we're trying to wrap this ball game up and call it a night. We got a few minutes here, but feel free to ask questions. Let's see. But it looks like it's this because it's traversing the directory. The directory lines up with the files that we see. So it's kind of weird to me that that's not the correct answer, but I could just be looking at it wrong. Because we do see the tree connect. So its source is this. It's connecting to our external actor with this port, and we see printgeneralwiki.com/print. Let's just look up the answer for us just to make sure, because I hate chasing my tail over formatting mistakes. Let's see. Here it is. I was talking about the Mimi spool stuff. Yeah, I guess. See if we can find it in here. So these universal drivers. So they're probably just one of the Mimikatz specific ones. See if we can find those. And we're scrolling through here looking for copying files. I know, so amazing. So we'll change ours to be this. Oh man, we got someone setting up a sock from scratch. Holy smokes, that's fun. Good time. Let's throw your comment up here so folks can see what we're talking about. Ham says that he's setting up a SOC at work from scratch. He has no experience, just a genuine interest, and they're a small IT team of 5. What other tools or advice would you recommend for a dude with 0 experience in the industry trying to stand something up like this? So, really good question, Ham. So let's see, some things you want to do setting up a SIM. First, you want to make sure you don't do any of the default installs and stuff. So I don't know a lot about Waza. I've never done that one, but typically you just want to make sure you're using HTTPS traffic, right? All your communications to it are being encrypted. That's huge. The next big thing you need to make sure you're doing is however you're sending the logs. So select the ones that are going to be the most beneficial. So you can easily screw up your storage pretty fast. So if you're, say, just throw sysmon on all of these systems and turn everything on, you're going to blow up your storage pretty fast. Like DLL module loads, it's going to eat up a lot of storage. So one of the things to think about is how much storage are you going to use as hot storage, and then slowly turn on logs, watching how much storage it's going to take. So sysmon 1s and 3s are really good ones to have. There's a few other ones that you can add in there over time. Yeah, there's some good repos out there. Let me throw one in chat for you. Let's see. I think it's Swift on Security has a good one. So that's a big one, right? You need to make sure you're keeping that in mind. I would also, however much storage you decide to do, here's the trick. I would shoot for 12 months. So however many logs you're doing, however much storage you're doing, you need to be able to search at least 12 months back. Some people do 6, but breaches could be in there for a while before they're discovered. You want to make sure your window doesn't close on you where you can't go back and look at all your events. So something very interesting to think about there, Ham. Actually, let me look up sysmon config, GitHub. I'll throw it in there for you. So that's a big thing to consider. Other than that, you also may want to archive it. So once it hits, like, say, 12 months, anything past 12 months, you're sending it off to a cold storage. That's in like SaaS type stuff. Maybe you have where you're packaging it up and archiving it or something to that effect. So something to think about. Swift on Security. It was Swift on Security. This is a good one. I would also think about when you're rolling out your logging configurations, do it through GPO or some automated method, because what you want to do is even after you roll it out, you need to consider, well, how do I make sure I get these tools on all of our new systems that we install and load up in our environment? And the best way to do that is GPO or your install scripts, your golden image. All those configurations should be in there. Those are probably the biggest suggestions I have with you, that at least have enough information and consistent information. You should be in a really good spot. Other than that, it's determining what else you want. There could be some security tools out there that you may want to add. So there's some IDS, IPS type systems you can throw up. There are, if you're getting any malware alerts, you could throw those in there. If you have any type of email security, like what's it called, Mimecast or something like that, you can forward those to your SIM as well. So just think about all the things that have information that you would like to look at in a single place, right? It's supposed to make your investigation more user friendly for you. So whatever you can get in there, go ahead and get in there. And it just takes some planning. So think about that and have fun. Let us know how it goes. Join the community on Discord. And if you have any more questions, throw them in there and we can hit you up during the week. So with that, Ham, I appreciate you. A great question at the end. A really good question at the end. Thanks everyone else who has joined us, not joined. I don't even know what I said. Thanks other folks for joining us this evening. Like I told Ham, if you're not in the community is a good place to be to ask questions throughout the week, so you have access to me and other folks in the industry when we're not live streaming. Yeah, I also have new videos coming out on a regular basis. I haven't had any as I've been automating some of my workflow. I skipped this week, but we'll have videos on different topics coming out. They're going to be a little bit more theme focused, so it makes a little bit more sense. We have a vibe we're going off of. But other than that, happy hacking, everyone. Good luck. Ask questions, take notes, all those fun things. We'll see you next week here on InfosecWizard Thursday stream. See ya.